Democracy is a widely and the most commonly used term today. We are all aware that we live in a democracy, but have we tried to analyze how a real democracy looks like? In school, the age old definition of Abraham Lincoln, the democracy is the government by the people, for the people, and of the people, was told to us. But have we thought about exactly what constitutes of by the people, for the people, and of the people? It's the poll season in most states of India, so in today's video, we shall explain to you what it means to be a democracy and why democracy is the most prevalent form of government today. What makes it better than the other forms of government as well. We know that democracy is a form of government in which the rulers are elected by the people. This raises many questions. Who are the rulers in this definition? What kind of election constitutes a democratic elections? Who are the people who can elect the rulers or get elected as rulers? Finally, what kind or a form of a government is democracy? Can elected rulers do whatever they want to do in a democracy? Or must a democratic government function within some limits? These are some fundamental questions we shall answer through giving you a few examples. In Pakistan, General Pervez Musharraf led a military coup in October 1999. He overthrew a democratically elected government and declared himself the chief executive of the country. Later, he changed his designation to the president, and in 2002, he held a referendum in the country that granted him a 5-year-long extension. In August 2002, he issued a legal framework order that amended the Constitution of Pakistan, and according to this order, the president can dismiss the national and provincial assemblies. After passing this law, elections were held to the national and provincial assemblies. So Pakistan has had elections, elected representatives have some power, but the final power rested with the military. So since elections are held and elected representatives exist, can we call this a democracy? Nope. The power to take final decision rested with the army officials and with General Musharraf, and none of them were elected by the people. It can't be called a democracy. It simply points out to the fact that this is the first and the most vital feature of the democracy, that the final decision-making power in a democracy rests with those elected by the people. Since its independence in 1930, Mexico holds elections after every 6 years to elect its president. The country has never been under a military or a dictator rule. But until 2000, every election was won by a party called as PRI, or Institutional Revolutionary Party. Opposition parties did contest elections but never managed to win. The PRI was known to use many dirty tricks to win the elections. All those who were employed in the government offices had to attend its party meetings. Teachers in government schools forced the parents to vote for PRI. Media largely ignored the activities of the opposition political parties except to criticize them. Can we call this a democratically held election? Nope, because people never really had a choice, at least not in practice. Hence, we can understand that holding elections is not just enough to be called a democracy. The elections must provide people with a legitimate choice, and a democracy must be based on free and fair elections where those currently in power have a fair chance of losing, and this becomes the second feature of the democracy. The third important feature of a democracy would be that each adult citizen must have one vote and each vote must have one value. Estonia had made its citizenship rules in such a way that the people belonging to the Russian minority found it difficult to get the right to vote itself. In Fiji, the electoral system is such that vote of an indigenous Fiji has more value than that of an Indian Fiji. These nations cannot be called as democratic because they are faulting on a basic principle of political equality and the fact that every vote must have one value and every adult citizen has one vote. Zimbabwe, an African nation, attained independence in the 1980s under white rule. And since then, the ZANU-PF party that had led the freedom struggle has been ruling the nation, and Robert Mugabe has been its leader. Elections were held regularly and always won by ZANU-PF. Robert Mugabe was popular but also used unfair practices in elections. Over the years, his government changed the constitution several times to increase the powers of the president and make him less accountable. Opposition has been harassed, the press and media has been gagged, public protests and demonstrations against the government were declared illegal. The government ignored some court judgments that went against it and pressurized the judges. Robert Mugabe was forced out of office in the year 2017. This example of Zimbabwe shows that popular governments can be undemocratic. popular leaders can be autocratic. If we wish to assess a democracy, it is important to look at the elections. But it is equally important to look at before and after the elections. There should be enough room for normal political activity, including political opposition. This requires that the state should respect some basic rights of the citizen. They should be free to think, to have opinions, to express this in public, to form associations, to protest, and to take other political actions. Everyone should be equal in the eyes of law. These rights must be protected by an independent judiciary whose orders are obeyed by everyone. A democratic government cannot do whatever it likes simply because it has won an election. It has to respect some basic rules. In particular, it has to respect some guarantees to the minorities. Every major decision has to go through a series of consultations, and this is the fourth and the final feature of democracy, that a democratic government rules within the limits set by the constitutional law and the citizens' rights. Let us understand why democracy is preferred form of government than the others. A democratic government is a better government because it is a more accountable form of government. Democracy improves the quality of decision making. Democracy provides a method to deal with differences and conflicts. Democracy enhances the dignity of the citizens. Finally, democracy is better than the other forms of government because it allows us to correct its own mistakes. While India has been a vibrant democracy since its independence and has moved ahead in this regard. Today, while most of us argue about the deterioration of democratic principles of the country, let's first try to be exactly sure about the basics of what an ideal or a real democracy looks or feels like. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you like our content, like, share and subscribe to NewsHamster on YouTube, and do follow us on social media handles for regular updates. And for regular articles and opinions, log on to www.thenewshamster.com. Until next time, Jai Hind.